attention paid rather to Turkey's decision to block YouTube that we've been talking about this morning.
That's right. It's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. Very simple headline: Turkey blocks YouTube days before vote. So this, of course, came after a leak. A meeting was leaked on YouTube. And especially it comes 48 hours before critical local elections, which will be held on Sunday, which a lot of people say is a referendum of the prime minister's 11-year in power. Now, last week, authorities stopped access to Twitter, and you can read about this in The Independent, which takes a closer look at this battle between Turkey and Twitter. Now, according to The Independent, the reason why the prime minister is wanting to ban these websites like Twitter and YouTube is because they've been behind all these leaks that are compromising his leadership. So according to this article, Erdogan is really to get ready to go to all lengths in order to silence information that's escaping his control, especially information regarding allegations he's been involved in a corruption scandal. Now, according to this article, this crackdown on freedom goes way beyond just social networks like Twitter, etc. Journalists are in jail. NGOs are silenced. This article, for instance, points out that earlier this month, Reporters Without Borders published its 2014 World Press Freedom Index, and Turkey comes in 154th out of 180 countries, so behind Iraq and Afghanistan.
Now, the Turkish Prime Minister has, of course, already drawn widespread criticism because of these bans.
That's right. On the front page of The Guardian today, you can read about authors who are coming out to criticize the Prime Minister. These are high-profile authors such as Salman Rushdie, Zadie Smith, and especially Turkey's Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk. Now, they've signed a joint letter to the Prime Minister stating their concern about freedom of words in Turkey, as they call it. They say this ban on Twitter is an unacceptable violation of the right to freedom of speech, and they're very concerned about what Erdogan will do next. Now, I've pulled out an article from Hurriyet as well, which is a mainstream secular paper, which points out that the country is very divided on this issue, because on the one hand, you have people who are outraged, who are fighting for internet freedom, etc., but then you have a lot of people who are actually supporting the Prime Minister and his ban on transparency, because they actually really do believe that there's a global conspiracy led by American internet businesses to undermine Erdogan. So this article wonders, is there no hope? And I must admit, this article is not very optimistic.
Now we're going to move on to other news, Florence, in particular Asia, and the South Korean and Japanese newspapers' reactions to that meeting on Tuesday by the two leaders.
That's right. The South Korean President Park Geun-hye and the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, they met on Tuesday on the sidelines of that nuclear security summit in The Hague. Now, this was the first formal meeting between the two leaders since they've been elected, and it was a meeting that was set up actually by the U.S. President Barack Obama. Now, during that meeting, they vowed to stand together against the threat of North Korea, but it was much more than that. It was a very symbolic meeting, because relations between the two countries have really deteriorated recently over territorial issues, but also over what, according to Chosun Ilbo, that's a South Korean paper, is Japan's attempts to deny responsibility for its World War II atrocities. So disagreements over history. But according to this article, Seoul and Tokyo must really tackle their differences head on. But this article says the ball now is in Tokyo's court.
And the Japanese press flow agreeing that the meeting was a positive step for repairing those damaged ties.
That's right. The Japan Times says that this meeting really needs to be followed up by a bilateral summit as quickly as possible. And Mainichi, another Japanese paper, also agrees that this is a step in the right direction. But it points out that though both countries really need to face up to their history, they also really need to focus on the future. That's what's really important for peace in the region. And this article points out it's really important for both countries to do this without the U.S.'s help.
Now, staying in Asia, you've found an article, Flo, about a new and unlikely group stirring up trouble and controversy.
That's right. These are middle-aged and retired city dwellers who are dancing together in parks and squares. Now, why on earth would they be stirring up trouble? Well, it's because residents in nearby buildings say that they make too much noise and stop them from being able to relax after work. Now, dancers say that it actually keeps them healthy and active. To quote one, what are we supposed to do? Just sit around and wait for death? But there are big efforts that are underway to regulate public dancing. For instance, they've set up quiet zones. You can be fined if you dance in public outside of certain hours, etc. And according to an article in the Wall Street Journal today, this dancing dilemma is probably going to take a long time to be resolved because China's population is aging incredibly quickly.
So more and more old people to take to the streets and dance. Florence Vilmino, thank you very much indeed. 26 minutes past 9. You're watching live from Paris. We're going to take a short break now, but we'll be right back with the headlines. And after that, we'll be getting all the latest from the campaign trail in Turkey as the country prepares for those key local elections on Sunday. Elections that are considered something of a referendum on the rule of Recep Tayyip Erdogan. This after months of street protests against his government and a damaging corruption scandal.